Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. You know, I get a little bit confused about the Labor Party's position on this issue from time to time because today they've apparently taken a position that any more scrutiny on foreign investment in agriculture is a bad thing. But only a couple of years ago we had their alternative Prime Minister, their leader, Kevin Rudd, their person they put up to be in charge of this country. Only 2 years ago, he was asked at the Asia Sydney Society Policy Institute about investment in Australian rural land, and this is what Kevin Rudd said, exactly, direct quote: "I'm a bit nervous, a bit anxious, frankly, about simply an open slather approach on this. I think when it is about rural land and land more generally, we need to adopt a more cautious approach. We should not have open slather." That was just 2 years ago. 2 years ago, the leader of the Labor Party saying that he wanted a more cautious approach on investment in foreign land, and now we have a completely different position from the Labor Party on foreign investment in rural land. It is exactly the same approach they took to foreign investment in residential land, completely ad hoc and all over the place. And when they were in government in 2009, I believe it was Minister Bowen at the time, I might be stand corrected, but in 2009 the Labor Party changed the regulations on investment in residential land to allow more open slather, to allow more foreigners to invest in residential housing, particularly existing housing. There was a huge surge in foreign investment in our major cities, particularly Sydney, and within 2 years they'd reversed the approach and gone back to the previous approach, which basically means that foreigners generally cannot invest in residential housing or land in this country, in existing housing I should say. They can invest off the plan or in new housing. And that's also, the Labor Party's been all over on this issue for a number of years. And there is also a massive inconsistency with how we treat investment in residential property and how we treat investment in non-residential property. And there are differences between them. But to come into this place and try to argue that somehow more scrutiny and more transparency on investment in agricultural land is somehow the sky is going to fall in just does not make sense when we make it such that all foreigners cannot buy an existing home in Sydney or Melbourne. Why is there such that inconsistency? Why do we never hear anything from the Labor Party about why foreigners should be able to invest in residential housing in our major cities, but they want to bang on about investment in rural land? The reality is we increased the thresholds on foreign investment review board decisions a few years ago to $250-odd million. It's been going up with inflation every year, but it sits at about $250 million. That means we provide no scrutiny at all to investment in agricultural land because, of course, there's almost no farm in the country. There's one farm, perhaps Cubby Station, but basically no farm in the country is worth more than $250 million. It's an anomaly that we are fixing with the changes that are before the Senate at the moment. It's also an anomaly which will still make, even after the changes we make, we will still be one of the most liberal countries in the world for investment in agricultural land, and we should be because Senator Sinodinos is correct that we do need investment in our agricultural sector, and because of that we will be one of the most liberal and still remain one of the most liberal countries in the world to welcome foreign investment. If you go to the US, a bastion of free markets and open competition, there are 11 states in the US which make it that no non-residents can purchase farmland. No non-residents. None at all. In places like Nebraska, Oklahoma, Iowa, Michigan, Missouri, North Dakota, many of them big farming states in the US. They don't allow any non-residents to buy farmland at all. In a few other states, only US citizens can buy farmland. In Canada, there are different restrictions between different provinces, but again, generally foreigners are restricted to purchasing less than 40 acres in most farming states in Canada. In New Zealand, any parcel of non-urban land more than 5 hectares is defined as sensitive, and purchases by foreigners must receive approval by the Overseas Investment Office. So our changes to bring the threshold down from that $250 million odd level to around $15 million for scrutiny will still make us one of the most liberal countries in the world, but it will provide some scrutiny, at least for investment in our farmland. That is what I believe the Australian people expect, that we do scrutinise investments in land in this country and make sure they're within our national interest, make sure that decisions that we make as a government accord with the principles established in the Foreign Investment Act, which is to make sure those investments are in our national interest.